Hello there! You're listening to Pinoy MCU Fan, a Filipino podcast where I get to talk about everything and anything Marvel Cinematic Universe. I'm your host, Jim. Hi everyone! Welcome back to the Pinoy MCU Fan podcast. I hope everyone's having a great week so far. And malapit na tayo sa Multiverse of Madness. It's gonna be on May 4th. So I hope you guys also got your tickets ready because I got mine and I'm super excited because this is going to be my first premiere after such a long time because I remember yung last na nood ko ng actual release date was it Infinity War. I wasn't able to watch Endgame on the same day because I was having my finals back in college. So I was like super busy with school already. So I was able to watch it like 2 days after. And also the same thing for Spider-Man Far From Home. Parang mga 1 day after, 2 days after ko siya napanood. But yeah, I'm just super excited for what do you call this? For Multiverse of Madness kasi alam kong alam ko yung mga fellow Filipino fans. They're like super into the MCU and I know that in the movie theater, I'm gonna feel it like lahat kami. May kasama ako mag-gasp sa mga nangyayari sa movie. So that's gonna be exciting. Cause when I watched Infinity the last time that I had like that specific crowd was in Infinity War. And I was in Hawaii at that time. So medyo onti lang kasi yung crowd sa Hawaii. But nonetheless, grabe yung hype talaga sa Infinity War. Kasi again, who does that? Like, when did the superheroes lose? You know what I mean? So, yun talaga. Sobrang shook. Tapos, yung pagkakamali ko sa Endgame, I went with like a different crowd. Like, sponsored kasi ng 7-Eleven yung movie. Yung movie palabas na yun, movie showing na yun. So, doon ako pumunta. Medyo puro mga 7-Eleven employees. So, mga matatanda, mga ganun. Parang pumunta lang sa sinan kasi libre nga naman. So, I didn't get that hype with my fellow audiences. But nonetheless, I was like super excited when I saw Endgame. And then for Far From Home, ewan ko, yung showing na napuntahan ko, konti lang yung tao. So, it was just okay. Again, I think I talked about this before. This is also one of the reasons why I really love Ant-Man because it's one of my best experiences ever. I saw the Ant-Man and the Wasp in Vegas, and it was literally the first time that I shouted in a movie theater because we were so shocked by the mid-credit scene. Yung nasnap, yung nasnap sila Hope, yung nasnap sila Hope while while Scott is literally inside the yeah, well he's literally inside the the quantum realm. So that was super exciting. There were like a bunch of us MCU fans inside who literally stood up and shouted so loud inside. Yeah, but it was super fun. So I hope that I kind of get that same crowd in May 4 for Multiverse of Madness. So if you're not from the Philippines and you're listening to this podcast, parang nagulat ka na, wait, how come she's talking about May 4 Multiverse of Madness when in the US it comes out at May 6, right? So, yeah, naswerte po ang Pilipinas ngayon. Kami na po nauuna sa releases, as we should, cause we were super late with No Way Home. And I'm still mad about it. But thank God na we're back to normal programming wherein Asia usually gets the premieres first. So yeah. Yeah, so I'm super excited for that. If you guys got your tickets, I got my ticket sa SM Aura. So if you guys are gonna be there, I'm gonna be on the first show, which is 11:15. And sadly, I didn't get IMAX because yung IMAX is in 3D. And I'm like, I cannot with 3D because I'm already wearing glasses, and then you have to wear a mask inside a cinema, of course. So it was like it's already hard for me to watch with my glasses on because of the fog. The fog, yeah, nagfa-fog yung glasses ko. So like imagine if I'm wearing another 3D glasses, it would like make my experience harder. But I do know that some people are gonna go through that experience just to make sure that they see this movie in 3D. I'm so happy for them because I really cannot. But yeah, I'm super excited for them. I'm super excited for me. I'm super excited for us Filipino fans because we deserve this, you guys. Okay. And as usual, make sure that you guys are masked up. You guys got your booster, your vaccines, and yeah, mag-alcohol tayo lagi. Mag-alcohol, tsaka siguro kapag magga-gasp tayo, takpan na lang natin yung takpan na lang natin yung bibig natin, gano'n. Para siyempre stay safe pa rin tayo sa pagfa-fangirl at pagfa-fanboy, 'di ba? Oh my God, pero excited na oh my God, sobrang excited na ako. Feeling ko part din ng excitement ko is that it's been a long time since, we've been like together watching an MCU film. So, hype talaga around this one. So, yeah. Speaking of hype, well, speaking of hype, as you guys can tell with the with the title of this episode, it's pretty parang sad, parang hindi man sad or very attacking yung point ng topic natin for today for this episode. Pero just like anything else, it's very important to talk about this and para para makita din natin yung early signs and we can prevent it early on. So, ano nga ba ang MCU burnout? So, for this one, for us to understand this, I think it's best muna to talk about what burnout is. So, what is burnout? According to WebMD, burnout is a form of exhaustion caused by constantly feeling swamped. It's a result of excessive and prolonged emotional, physical, and mental stress. Grabe, mental stress? In many cases, burnout is related to one's job. And actually, according to a 2019 World Health Organization post, sabi nila, burnout is an occupational phenomenon, meaning that it only happens to people who are working a job. But to be honest, who are we kidding? No matter if you're employed or unemployed, you are constantly going to feel burnout, diba? Kasi we're constantly doing something, right? Lahat tayo nagtatrabaho, lahat tayo nag-aaral, or syempre may duties tayo sa pamilya natin, sa kaibigan natin and such. And those things can make you feel burned out. So, yun. Gusto ko lang i-point out sa inyo yung meaning talaga ng burnout, okay? So, ayun nga, what is the MCU burnout? Just like how a normal burnout would be, MCU burnout deals with being so swamped with MCU releases and content that the fan would feel burned out. So, yung feeling na parang yung fan, they would just stop watching anything related to the MCU because they feel overwhelmed with the characters, storyline, movies, TV shows, Easter eggs, spin-offs, theories, articles, the media, and such. When I was doing my research for this episode, a lot of the articles that popped up talked about superhero fatigue and superhero burnout. And then half of the Google search results were pre-pandemic, so before 2020. And of course, they talked about the superhero genre as a whole, especially na yung the two big players of the superhero genre, which is Marvel and DC. So I'm not really familiar with DC, but they also have a lot of releases in the past. In the past 15 years, si Batman, di ba, ang dami niyang variations. They had Justice League movie going on as well, which meant that meron solo releases for Superman, Wonder Woman, Aqua. Ito naman tayo sa bulol. Bulol na naman po ako. Si Aquaman. And then they also had Suicide Squad and Shazam. And I'm pretty sure I'm missing some of the movies, but you get what I mean, right? And of course, for Marvel, they had two franchises going on, the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the X-Men franchise. So yeah, ayun ang focus ng mga superhero fatigue na articles. For the MCU-centered burnout articles that I did find, they were mostly talking about the topic of burnout by analyzing the big data, yung mga box office records, box office earnings, ano pa ba? Yung mga amount of people who watch the MCU release on its first week versus the second week, yung ganon, yung mga stuff like that, puro big numbers ang batayan. And it's, for me it's very businessy yung dating for me. Kasi they're analyzing financial results and viewer turnout and stuff. Parang very big data. For me, hindi siya masyado people focused, medyo sales. Sales talk yung dating for me. But yeah, so of course, these are important part of analyzing din naman yung success ng MCU. Ito talaga yung metrics talaga na titignan mo if you're like an analyst or something. Pero for this episode, I want to tap into the topic of the MCU burnout on a personal level, 'di ba? What the MCU is doing, what are we doing about it? Are we really burned out of the MCU? So first, bago tayo mag-deep dive, wow, bago tayo mag-deep dive into the MCU burnout topic, I wanna explain muna sa inyo guys, bakit ba successful ang Marvel Cinematic Universe? A few years ago, actually, I came across this 2019 Harvard Business Review publication titled Marvel's Blockbuster Machine: How the Studio Balances Continuity and Renewal. Social, Harvard Biz. Okay, it's such a great article to be honest, and they really went deep in just to analyze Marvel Studios. The article was published in the HBR magazine of the July August 2019 issue. I came across this article because I was like so deep into the MCU back then that I wanted to learn how they did it. How did they survive for so long? To be honest, the Harvard Business Review did such an amazing job explaining everything in this article. And surprisingly for the Harvard Business Review, yung article na yun wasn't businessy. Hindi siya parang businessy at all, and very human-centric siya for me. And that's why I like this article din talaga. Let me read you the article's summary. Marvel Studios has redefined the franchise movie, in part by finding the right balance between creating innovative films and retaining enough continuity to make them all recognizably part of a coherent family. The authors of the article analyzed 338 interviews with producers, directors, and writers, and 140 reviews from leading critics. They digitally analyzed each movie's script and visual style and examined its network of actors and behind the scenes workers. The authors argued that Marvel's success rests on four principles. One, selecting for inexperienced. Two, leveraging a stable core. Three, continually challenging the formula. And four, cultivating customers' curiosity. So let's break down this article, okay, shall we? Okay, number one, the experienced inexperienced. So what HBR meant by this is that Marvel Studios usually hires blockbuster inexperienced actors, directors, and even writers into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So bali wala sila talagang experience sa blockbuster movies, sa mga superhero genre, ganon. Pero in their own work, whether it be na galing sila sa indie films or they're like more on the comedy or horror or heist film like era of like movies, magaling sila dun sa specialty nila. So with the right encouragement and creative freedom, these filmmakers and their team gave a superhero movie a fresh new look. Iron Man was like wittingly funny and serious at the same time. Pero may spark talaga si Iron Man. Guardians of the Galaxy is comedy, pero it's also a space movie that is very grounded with its 70s playlist, 'di ba? Yung playlist ni Peter Quill na puro 70s track lang. Ayun. And Thor was a very Shakespeare type of movie. Ant-Man is a heist film, 'di ba? Ganon. Black Panther is like a social commentary movie. Ano pa ba? Agent, parang spy movie yung Captain America, the Winter Soldier. So, yon. Let's go to the second one. Two, leveraging a stable core. Stable core. Okay, so for this point, for me, this is the fun part of the article. Kasi literal na chinek talaga ng HBR yung mga nagtatrabaho sa Marvel Studios. Which is nakakaloka, di ba? Tinouble check talaga nila lahat. Ang dami nun. Okay, so HBR wrote, we compared overlap between movies and the staff of the core creative group, which is typically about 30 people for each film, with overlap in the full crew, about 2,500 people, and found significantly more in the core. On average, about 25% of the core group overlaps from one movie to the next, with a range of 14% to 68%. Wow, 68%. And the full crew averages an overlap of 14%, with a range of 2% to 33%. HBR argued that having this stable core of creatives and crew creates the continuity in a franchise while inviting more people to join in on the fun. Usually, kasi when actors are cast in a superhero film, they find this one some sort of like goodbye to their careers kasi magiging typecasted sila into that specific role. So when we say typecasted is that like when we see RDJ, we just see him as Iron Man, you know, or when we see Chris Hemsworth, we call him Thor. That's the only way that we can see him. It's like we cannot really see these actors in other characters, in other movies. But yun, parang pag na-typecast ka sa isang role, mahihirapan na sila maghanap ng other projects. Kasi makikita na nga lang talaga ng audience is like, oh, oo, ito yung Marvel superhero, ganun. Pero we all know that's not the case for the MCU. Lalo na sa mga leading actors ng MCU. For example, RDJ, Chris Evans, Scarlett Johansson, Chris Pratt. Yeah, they all still had projects outside of the MCU. Moreover, MCU is also attracting high-profile actors to play supporting casts like Nyong'o, si Lupita, basta si Lupita, si Gwyneth Paltrow, Anthony Hopkins, Benedict Cumberbatch, Angelina Jolie, Kate Blanchett, and a lot more of like these A-list celebrities. And the reason for that is that they are encouraged to explore their own creative freedom with these characters. Number three, continually challenging the formula. Okay, this one is another fun part in the article because they digitally analyzed 20 MCU films, scripts, and scenes to determine how the franchise, para malaman nila kung yung formula ng Marvel Cinematic Universe ng Marvel Studios. It's a pretty long section. So I suggest that you guys read the article na lang. Wow. Ganun na ba ni-redirect. Pero yes, as usual, I'm gonna put all of the article links in the description box of this podcast episode. But basically, the MCU's formula is literally having no formula. Does that make sense? Experimentation is key to each MCU release. There is no one genre tone in MCU films kasi yun nga, kakasabi ko lang kanina, they all have their own like genre. Comedy, heist, Shakespeare, brainy film, space movie, a movie that likes its own soundtrack a lot. Social commentary, mystical movie, magic, ayan. Parang each movie talaga meron siyang sariling genre. So, yun pala. And this goes back to the first point din talaga. Na freedom of creativity from its core team gives the MCU a fresh new release. And also, I want to add that the way that Marvel Studios hires directors kasi pag binigyan mo ng malaking budget yung mga indie directors, they know exactly what to do with it. You know what I mean? Kung dun pa nga lang sa indie film nila na hapit-hapit yung budget, ang ganda-ganda na nung nagawa nilang pelikula. Paano pa kaya pag binigyan mo ng malaking budget, di ba? So it's gonna be much more amazing. So that formula also helped with how they continually experiment. And to be honest, it's working, right? John Favreau, the director of Iron Man in 2008, it was a risky move for Marvel Studios because they know that John Favreau is actually an indie film artist and like independent filmmaker siya. But he has a lot of iconic films under his belt way before Iron Man. And look at us. Look at nasa na tayo, 'di ba? Basically, RDJ and John Favreau really jump started the whole MCU, 'di ba? And number 4, lastly, cultivate customer curiosity. So HBR points out how Marvel Studios actively engages with its fan base. Directors, writers, and actors actively engage with fans on social media, conventions, ano pa ba, and such. The movies itself caters to the die-hard fans that newbies can't help but join in on the fun. So the most famous one is Stan Lee's cameos in all Marvel films. So both MCU and non-MCU films, we all know that Stan Lee is gonna be there. So when you watch a Marvel film, it's kind of fun to like spot where he is, 'di ba? Parang kahit hindi ka comic fan, parang ayun, alam mo na si Stanley, kilala mo si Stanley. MC also popularized and took advantage of mid-credits and end-credit scenes to show how connected the movie is in the whole bigger Marvel Cinematic Universe. And also being a comic-based franchise, Marvel Studios makes sure that their set, yung set na mga movie set nila, also reference materials that die-hard fans will notice. So mostly mga comic book fans, diba? An example would be the Infinity Gauntlet in the first Thor movie. Yon, yung mga parang ganon, yung mga little things like that na parang nasa background lang, ganon ganon. These mini bonuses, as I like to call them, also generate fan interaction within the community and creators as well. This gives the viewer a sense of discovery in a way na wow, there are so much more into this movie. Yon. So to conclude the 4 points of the HBR article, they argue that the MCU's success has those four fundamentals that we just discussed. So, again, if you'd like to read more about this HBR article, I'm gonna put the link down some podcast description box, diba? So now that we know the fundamentals of their success, what's causing this MCU burnout discourse? 'Di ba? Parang nakaka-shock. Kung successful naman pala talaga ang MCU, why are people talking about the burnout, 'di ba? So as I mentioned earlier, most of the articles that were shown on Google mostly talked about the superhero genre burnout, or most of the terms that they used were superhero fatigue. So, but as a way to dig kaya ko 'to. Ito na medyo nase-stress na ako sa topic. To dig deeper into the MCU burnout, it's important to note that the timeline of these superhero fatigue discussions were made. So, it's important na alam natin kung anong year to na pag-uusapan. Kasi it also varies, di ba? Kasi depending on the year, kung gaano kadami yung superhero movie in that year or ano yung quality ng movies in that year, di ba? So, I am pretty sure that the superhero fatigue has been talked about a lot. Besides, the world has seen multiple superhero films before 2008. So, Superman, Batman, X-Men, Fantastic Four, Blade, Daredevil, and other movies pa. Marami pang movies. Marami pang superhero movies. But in the context of MCU, I was able to find articles and blogs mentioning the superhero fatigue before the release of the 2012 Avengers. So, the blog post that I found were the 2011 blog post from themovieblog.com and Box Office Buzz AB, wordpress.com. These two, ito yung earliest na blog that I found talking about the Avengers. They also expressed the superhero fatigue that we were feeling. And 2011 was such a big year too in superhero films, especially for the MCU, because we were introduced to Thor and Captain America. Another other big superhero films in 2011 were X-Men First Class, Green Lantern, Green Hornet, and the Transformers, the Dark Moon. Okay, the last one was like Aliens car hybrid, but we have to admit, Transformers is very, superhero stuff din naman yun. Alien nga lang na kotse. Kotse. So yun, the two blogs mentioned how the buzz around superhero films felt becoming, naging too much na daw. Pero they were enjoyable nonetheless. They also mentioned how excited and anxious they are for the 2012 release of Avengers. Since the 2012 Avengers was the first big crossover movie of the decade. So parang feeling anxious about it is also understandable. The blogs felt that the 2012 Avengers film is kind of like a make it or break it moment for the superhero genre. Few months before the United States May 2012 premiere of the Avengers, The Atlantic actually published a March 2012 opinion piece titled "The Avengers and the Superhero Fatigue." Diba? Very straightforward. The Avengers agad. Yeah. Unlike this unlike the two previous bloggers that I mentioned, the Atlantic writer are already is so done with superhero movies before the Avengers even came out. The writer wrote, "Maybe this Avengers movie will end the big Marvel assault that we've endured. Mostly enjoyably since Iron Man first blasted into our faces. Granted, it doesn't seem very likely that they'll stop here, but maybe there will at least be a slight reprieve, a pause for regrouping. That would be nice. The superhero resurgence was fun and all, but we need a break." Very, grabe no, first ano pangalan yun eh, first crossover movie pa lang, nasa-stress na siya. And of course, years later, Marvel Studios proved the critics wrong about the Avengers. The film, which was also the last movie of MCU's Phase 1, turned out to be the most fundamental part of the MCU's success, diba? The 2012 Avengers film set us up for the ending of the Infinity Saga, preparing us for the future of the MCU. Shield's original six Avengers inspired multiple characters in the MCU that would eventually take us further and beyond the cinematic universe, diba? And who are we kidding? Fans love superhero team ups, right? Pero in moderation, of course. Okay, so in phase 2 and 3, we see more characters being introduced in the MCU. Guardians of the Galaxy, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Black Panther, the Scarlet Witch, the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Captain Marvel, and so much more new character. Doctor Strange. Hindi ko lang makalimutan si Doctor Strange. But in my opinion, the superhero fatigue became superhero burnout when 2016 was packed with superhero team ups. Although we had solo movies like Doctor Strange and Deadpool, the world was bombarded with Suicide Squad, Batman versus Superman, X-Men, Apocalypse, and of course, Civil War. So ang daming team ups na nangyayari. So it is definitely overwhelming. It was so overwhelming that Rolling Stone published an article titled 10 Signs You Have the Superhero Movie Fatigue. But we will talk about that later. Despite the fatigue and burnout discourse, Marvel Studios still showed that its films can keep fans engaged, and interested to keep coming back to the cinemas. And it is very evident naman with Infinity War came out in 2018. Variety even published an article titled Avengers Infinity War shows Marvel Cinematic Universe is immune to superhero fatigue, which is true, right? This is a great read, by the way. So I'll be adding the link to the article in the description box. Para basahin nyo rin, guys. So it's really a great read. I really like this article. But personally, for me, the reason why Infinity War is so good is that it's literally the first time we've seen these heroes lose. Like literally all of them lose. Like who does that? Who gets to see that? In superhero movies, you would always expect the superhero to win, but in Infinity War, it's devastating. Like I literally walked out the theater devastated. I literally cannot believe that I just watched my childhood heroes lose. It's it's just weirdly unbelievable. And it definitely got me excited for the following MCU releases because syempre, sobrang curious ako like paano ba how would these defeated superheroes fight an alien who literally wiped out half of their team and half of the whole universe. Like what the hell, 'di ba? Like sobrang nakakashock talaga. And of course, Avengers Endgame literally exceeded all expectations about the past superhero burnout discourse. Yun nga, sabi nga ng HBR article, Marvel Studios perfected the formula to keep the fans coming. But with the end of the Infinity Saga and the start of Phase 4, are we really heading to the MCU burnout? Again, the topic here is not superhero fatigue, it's MCU burnout. So, why did I talk about the term superhero fatigue in the first place? Because it's essential din naman talaga to understand the difference and connection between superhero as a genre and the MCU as its own. So we gotta agree that the MCU it's in a league of its own. Because then, as you do your own research or when you read the articles that I linked in the description, you'd notice that most of the early critics point out that the superhero genre fatigue might be the downfall of the MCU. When in fact, as we can all see after Endgame, that MCU talaga is nasa sarili niyang lane yung MCU. Wala siyang, parang nasa sarili lang competition ng MCU is itself, you know. And again, it's the first superhero franchise so unique and intricate that its interconnected universe is literally nearing. We're literally nearing our 50th anniversary. So the MCU literally created a genre of their own, in a sense, you know, if you think it that way. Early critics do have a point though that, and again, it's also a good way to remind Marvel Studios that the superhero fatigue is still a thing and that they should be super careful about it. Prior to Endgame, we saw that Kevin Feige actually is aware of it. Basta merong interview where Kevin addressed the superhero fatigue. And, you know, he said that they are constantly putting out movies with a fresher take and style. So, alam din ni Marvel Studios how to adapt. So, when Endgame came out, critics and fans were both anxious and excited regarding sa next phase ng MCU, which is Phase 4. And this time, the MCU fatigue has been addressed yet again as a form of reminder to Marvel Studios. We all know that we literally welcome 2020 with a global pandemic. So, Miss Rona came and literally changed the way we do everything, including how we consume our media and how we consume MCU. In 2020, Marvel Studios halted any releases for the year. All of the projects planned for 2020 were moved to 2021. And to be honest, the pandemic served as a break from the constant MCU releases. So it was like we took a rest noong 2020 from the MCU fatigue. Yon. So the start of the pandemic was actually very hard. We can all agree that it was very hard for everyone. But on the topic of MCU fatigue, it's a relief that we all had a break. So in a way, it's like pag titignan natin yung timeline, it's pre-endgame and pre-pandemic are kind of the same things now. Post Endgame releases started premiering in 2021. So WandaVision, an original Marvel Studios TV series on Disney Plus, premiered on January 2021. It's also the first time that we saw Marvel Studios produce a TV show. And coincidentally, it also coincides with the first release of the Phase 4. So WandaVision talaga yung opener natin for Phase 4. It was a lot of pressure on WandaVision, of course, but we all know that they delivered. We can all agree that it was a new way of storytelling in the MCU, and it definitely paid off. It was perfect for Wanda's arc, and it's the first time that we've seen and understood what she's going through. So Marvel Studios limited TV series are different than what we are used to with sa Netflix. Sa Netflix kasi, isang baksakan lahat ng episodes per season. So, kayang-kaya mo talaga siya mapanood lahat in less than a day. But for Marvel Studios, parang typical na channel TV lang na once a week nire-release yung episodes. And since it's a limited TV series, most of their episodes are 6 to 7 episodes lang. Which means, yung runtime ng TV series na to is 6 to 7 weeks. Ganon. So far, for the TV series, mostly puro sila spin-off of our beloved characters. Si Wanda, si Vision, si Sam, si Bucky, si Hawkeye, and si Loki. Tapos, What If was the first animated series from Marvel Studios as well. And yun naman, it also featured a lot of our favorite characters already. The Avengers, Killmonger, Black Panther, Gamora, Strange, Vision, you know. So this March lang nag-release ang Marvel Studios ng TV series na based on a new character. So they introduced Moon Knight to the MCU. Right now, I think they're currently streaming, and I think depende kung kailan ko to i-release ng episode na to. It's either we're waiting for episode 3 or episode 4. So yeah. So far, parang wala pang pinapakita na connection si Moon Knight to our already known characters. So we really have no clue pa rin talaga what his role is in the bigger universe of the MCU. Yon. So far naman, for Phase 4 movies, we have Black Widow opening the MCU back into the cinemas in May 2021. And then the rest of the 2021 releases also introduced us to new characters, the Eternals and Shang-Chi, which we can tell that they connected to the larger part of the MCU. And of course, 2021 ended with the blockbuster Spider-Man No Way Home noong December. So imagine that we have 4 movie releases last year, while the Disney Plus lineup was all beefed up as well. Although that we are overflowing with content, we have to agree that too much can get overwhelming. While the TV series were releasing its episodes, yung weekly release nila nag-overlap din sa movie releases, leaving us fans with little to no room to take a breath at all. Yon. So unlike pre-pandemic, pre-endgame, we had like wiggle room to take a break and prepare for the next hype MCU release, 'di ba? Parang sa February may lalabas na movie, tapos yung next movie sa May na, tapos yung susunod na movie October or November, yon. I think we rarely have movies na December ganun. I think but I'm not sure. Pero gets ba, malayo-layo yung spaced out naman yung release ng mga movie back then. When content is released simultaneously, it can definitely feel overwhelming naman talaga. To the point na baka mahilo-hilo na tayo tapos mag-burnout na tayo. So again, I think phase 4 din talaga yung phase na in making us really talk about MCU Burnout. And if I remember correctly, November to December 2021 was definitely jam-packed. Like literal. Like right after Eternals released, Hawkeye came out agad. And while Hawkeye was doing its weekly releases, the world is already looking forward to No Way Home. And as the Pinoy MCU fan, I have to admit I had to sacrifice one of them just to stay on top of the my MCU content. And yes, I had to give up watching Hawkeye weekly so I can give myself a break. I'm sorry, Hawkeye. And honestly, it seems like I'm not the only one feeling that way, you know. The numbers even show that Hawkeye is the least watched live action MCU TV series. So, sorry, Hawkeye. Onti lang nanood sa'yo. Pero of course, MCU still brings in big numbers than any other franchises. But in the context of MCU Burnout or like within the releases of the MCU, si Hawkeye yung may pinakamababa talaga. And these numbers definitely shows us how the whole audience is feeling. Meanwhile, Eternals actually received the same numbers too. It had the lowest opening weekend numbers in Phase 4. And I do have to admit that I think it's because it was released in between two highly anticipated movies of the year, which were Shang-Chi and No Way Home. So even though Shang-Chi is a newcomer like Eternals, it actually overperformed against COVID-19 protocols that we had in place. Speaking of which, who are we kidding? We are literally still in a pandemic, so these numbers might not really account the number of people who watched the movies on a streaming platform, either on Disney Plus or on pirated websites. So yeah. So overall though, the Phase 4 MCU releases are still giving Marvel Studios a worth of numbers, and it's way above the average movie releases of like the general industry, diba? Personally, if I was Kevin Feige, I wouldn't even worry that much about the numbers as long as they're up to the MCU numbers of cha-ching, of the dollars. Money, 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 gano'n. Mukhang pera eh, no? Pero yeah, we all have to agree that Marvel Studios are all good naman. But no, no, no. For real though, even though the 2021 releases were chaotic, I had a feeling this was also the time everyone was experimenting, not just in movies app, like everyone are all adjusting to the pandemic. So we were all definitely finding ways to live our lives with Miss Rona. 2021 was real stressful, not going to lie, you guys. But we have to acknowledge that we were all finding our groove during the pandemic. If you guys look back in 2021's MCU, it's evident na yung constant changes ng releases were they all felt very experimentational, di ba? Experimentation na nga, experimentational pa. Nabubulol na ako. Experimental. There you go. A great example would be Black Widow, which actually released like sabay in theaters and in streaming. So, sa sinehan tsaka sa Disney Plus, sabay na pinag-release for Black Widow. The TV shows had a different weekly releases, like nagpapalit-palit sila ng like for this TV series, it was like every Wednesday. For this TV series, every Thursday. Tapos yung isa every Friday. Medyo ano siya, medyo experimental din yun. Shang-Chi and Eternals premiered in theaters and then like streamed on Disney Plus after a certain number of days. I'm not even gonna talk about No Way Home. Alam naman natin yung pinagdaanan natin sa No Way Home. And of course, the Philippines were one of the few countries who were late to all of the theater releases too because of Miss Rona. Mga sarado yung sinehan natin. So, lahat ng movie releases talaga sa atin is late then. So, that also contributes to the amount of numbers that's gonna show up sa box office records or, stuff like that. Actually, Multiverse of Madness is gonna be the first time that we are getting the premiere that we deserve. So, yan. Halos same week naman yung release ng PH in US. Pero, mas maaga pa rin talaga tayo ng 2 days. So, May 4 dito sa atin, May 6 sa US. Diba? Look at how chaotic 2021 MCU was. Sino ba hindi maburnout, diba? Not to mention, it's so hard to keep up with how connected each other are to the bigger MCU. It's pretty funny then. It's funny because it's literally one of the strongest traits of the MCU success, but it's also the cause of our burnout. Pre pandemic, we all had the chance to take a break from movies, which give us enough time to really absorb what we just watched and analyze everything in our own face as we wait for the next Marvel release. But with theaters and streaming happening at the same time, not to mention how fast the media are with churning out articles, tweets, blogs, Easter eggs, theories. As soon as something premieres, we as fans are definitely left to just, stand there and take it all in kahit hindi na natin kaya. It's me. I'm the fan. I have to admit that I feel the same. No, but for real, even my casual MCU fan friends are feeling the burnout. So, yun. Imagine mo yun ha. I am the Pinoy MCU fan. Ako yung Gina G sa amin ng friend group ko with all of the MCU happenings. And I still get fatigued. I still feel the fatigue and burnout. So, imagine mo na lang din how normal casual fans would feel, right? So yeah, overall that's like the brief history of the MCU burnout discourse. Medyo na-stress din ako sa pag-explain. So grabe. Burnout na burnout yarn. Pero yeah. So how do we know that we are experiencing fatigue and on the way to the MCU burnout? How do we prevent it? According to a Rolling Stone article, yung na-mention ko kanina, there are 10 signs daw to help us identify superhero movie fatigue. The article was also published in June 2016, so I have to say I felt some of the signs mentioned really real in 2021, and I hope to prevent from seeing these signs again in 2022. So, let's quickly analyze the points made in this article and see if any of these signs were felt in 2021. I am going to use 2021 as an example kasi dyan naman talaga tayo yung ito yung start ng phase 4 eh. Tsaka ito rin yung pinaka-tricky part talaga ng MCU. And it's important to find these signs as early as 2021 up to now so we know how to deal with it as we go further and beyond phase 4. And of course, I will use my own experience as an example then. 2021 is a big year for me too kasi it's the first time that I had the chance to closely follow MCU releases unlike dati nung nasa college pa ako. Oh, wow, very busy nung college. Masyado na ako maraming free time eh. Charot. Yon. Okay. So let's break down this article. Number 1. Wrangling of new talent inspires disappointment instead of hope. Okay, so honestly, for that first point, I don't think I felt this way last year. Most likely in part because I don't really Hindi naman ako gano'n katutok sa news na mga casting, gano'n. I just wait until a trailer drops or something. Pero syempre, sometimes, something comes up on my IG page, IG search page. Yeah, parang minsan nandun na lang din sa homepage ng IG ko. So, like, oh, okay, that's how I see it. But I can feel that some fans had been expressing their concerns over certain casting. Di ko lang maalala kung sino yung parang pinag-uusapan nila. Pero recently, I do remember that there has been a buzz around Dakota Johnson being cast as Madame Web in Sony's, yung sariling franchise ng Sony with the Spider-Man characters. I think, yeah, basta merong discourse regarding Dakota Johnson being casted for the role. I wouldn't talk more of it because I think it's not really entirely part of the MCU. Parang offshoot lang siya because Sony is now borrowing MCU's multiverse to build its own franchise. So, yeah, that's another talk for another episode. But yeah, personally, I just don't care about casting until a trailer has already dropped. If you feel if you felt this way recently or in the past MCU phases, oh my god, let me know please. Let me know what you think. Kasi, personally, I haven't really felt it. So, yeah, DM me on Instagram if you have kung meron kayo share sa akin. Kasi I would really want to know as well. From like an actual fan instead of like just researching articles again. But yeah, number 2. You've had to ask yourself, wait, which one is this again? This one is tricky because it's normal din naman to forget who's who sometimes. Pero I think it depends on how much you forgot about the MCU na. Kasi ako naman, I still remember most of the time. Pero I just ask nga, wait, saan nga ba siya uli? Kasi parang alam mo yun, nasa dulo ng dila ko kung nasan siya. Parang naalala ko talaga. Pero hindi ko lang masabi. Kaya parang I verbally ask like, wait, saan nga ba siya uli? Ganon. But if you're asking this question because you are genuinely confused after even the question has been answered for you, then maybe the fatigue is creeping in. Parang, syempre nagtanong ka, tapos may sumagot, tapos naguguluhan ka pa rin. Syempre siguro medyo nasa-stress ka na sa MCU, ganon. Pero and then of course, your reaction to the answers will also tell us if you're tired of the MCU na or you're still looking forward to explore more. I heard I heard this dati. Ay, ang gulo naman, may pa ganon. Yan. Usually, pag yung sinabi matik na, tinatamad ka na mag-explore best. Ganon. Kasi oo nga naman, bakit nga naman may pag ganon yung character, di ba? Nakakaloka yung mga character association minsan sa MCU. Pero if ang response mo naman is, oh, kaya pala, I would like to learn more. Aling movie ba pinakita yan? Ganun. Syempre, matik na that one expression, that one reply, expresses your willingness to learn more about the MCU. So it definitely depends on what you're thinking of din talaga. Like, ano yung thinking mo behind the wait, which one is this again? And how you respond to the answers to that question, dun din natin talaga malalaman kung burnout na ba yon or you're just pure curious pa rin talaga to explore the MCU. Number 3, sticking with a franchise out of obligation rather than interest. Ooh, I must admit that I felt this one with Black Widow. I'm so sorry. The movie was long overdue anyway, and I'm sorry, Natasha is dead. So why are we watching a movie about her? So medyo ang sama pang isipin. Pero I'm gonna admit that that's one of the thoughts that I had. Kasi sobrang, we all had to agree that it was like so long overdue. But yeah, it was, at first, it definitely was a chore for me. Hindi ako ganun ka-hype sa Black Widow. Like, I just went out to watch it kasi ayaw ko ma-FOMO. The fear of missing out. It wasn't really until I saw the trailer that I had some interest in Black Widow, finally. Most likely because bet na bet ko si Florence Pugh. Bet ko yung past work niya. So I was excited to see her in the MCU. And of course, Stranger Things, David Harbour as well, na nasa Black Widow. So since I also watched Stranger Things, so it was really cool to see him there in Black Widow in the MCU. So I guess by the time that I watched Black Widow, I was like 50-50. 50% enthusiastic about it, and then 50% na medyo pilit pa rin yung feeling. But honestly, the storyline turned out great, so I was super glad that I saw it. I'm glad to see then that Yelena is gonna be the feature of the Black Widow storyline in the MCU. We're just not gonna talk about the graphics, the CGI, and Black Widow. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Natasha. But yeah, overall naman, I don't feel like it's an obligation for me to stick with the MCU. I'm overly curious din naman kasi talaga, and I'm super interested in the MCU to the point nga na ako na pa talaga nagsisik ng other forms of media just to take it all in. I shared din naman before in my past episodes that the reason I started listening to Marvel podcasts, which eventually led me to created my own podcasts, is because na-bored na ako kakanood ng Marvel. Gusto ko naman ng Marvel content na ibang form of media, 'di ba? So ito is the reason that I'm here. Ayun. Pero I think what really feels like an obligation in our fandom is to watch every single release since Iron Man just to get some context of what's happening in the upcoming movie. I think it's acceptable during Infinity War and Endgame though. Like it's part of understanding Infinity War and Endgame since ayun nga yung ending ng dalawa. If you wanna understand the ending, of course you have to understand the whole story, 'di ba? You have to read or watch the whole story. Pero now, it's starting to feel like a weird obligation na din talaga na dapat every new release talaga magbaback read or magbaback-watch ka muna. Ganun. And, ayun, lalo na yung phase 4 natin, nagsimula yung phase 4 mostly with like spin-offs of our well-known characters. So yun talaga yung first part din talaga is very chore yung dating niya. Kasi you wouldn't understand WandaVision if you didn't watch, the past movies. You wouldn't understand the Falcon and the Winter Soldier if you haven't seen like the Captain America movies and then Endgame and Infinity War. And same for Loki, same for What If. It wasn't until I think September when Shang-Chi came out, and then Eternals in November. So ayun lang yung dalawang break natin in a way from all the watching everything. Mag-back read ka muna, yon. And as an MCU fan, I don't tell myself naman to do rewatching of past releases to get a sense of everything. Parang curiosity ko na lang din talaga na manood ng past release para ma-refresh yung memory ko kasi aminin ko medyo ano yung memory ko. Medyo makakalimutin po talaga ako. Pero kasi fans online and even the media, they can make you feel like a certain way din talaga. So, I can tell that from my friends. They would say that, ano ba yan? Do I really have to watch everything ulit just to understand Multiverse of Madness? So, ako na nga lang din talaga nagre-remind sa kanila na, no, you don't have to rewatch everything. I know that you've seen the past MCU releases. It's enough naman na. Kasi alam ko nung nanood sila ng Endgame. Pinanood din talaga nila in the past movies. And yeah, I'm a big advocate din talaga na not following whatever social media says. So, yun. Acceptable yung hype around binge watching the MCU for Infinity War and Endgame, pero if we still have to do it hanggang ngayon, that kind of tells a message na MCU's quality of making standalone movies is diminishing na din talaga. So, yeah, hoping na parang for me, naging medyo understandable na lang ako. Iniintindi ko na lang yung Marvel Studios kasi the pandemic was really hard. So, it really pushed back all of the projects. So, medyo, yeah, we did feel very overwhelmed in 2021. But I do hope that after 2021 here, this year and beyond, babalik na tayo sa regular programming, di ba? Number four, you dread the inevitable daily breaking superhero news. I personally suffer from this, to be honest. I think this just the internet and media is making us all feel all feel dead inside, you know. We're so interconnected now suddenly we need to stay connected at all times about all things. Last year there was this thing with Tom Holland talking about Spider-Man. Oh my god, the fiasco around it was yung kaganapan with that is that Tom kept saying different things like, "Yeah, I would love to play Spider-Man for the rest of my life." And then the next thing he will say that, "Oh no, if I'm still doing Spider-Man in 30 years, then I'm probably doing something wrong in my career." And of course, we all fell in love with Tom Holland's Spider-Man, and fans obviously want him to play the character as long as the franchise's storyline allows him to. Pero his statements were very confusing and contradicting that I can't help but feel very frustrated, right? Turns out it's just a regular actor thing that they do that, like nagsasabi talaga sila ng mga stuff na like that to the press to send a message to the studios na like, hey, I'm super conflicted about this, but the fans want me. So what are you gonna do? Are you gonna pay me more? Are you gonna keep me on this contract or whatever? Anyway, that's just one example of the burnout I feel with all the superhero news that we were bombarded with. And yes, do not get me started on the amount of articles na lumalabas agad once a project, trailer, movie, TV show has been announced. Kasi nakakaloka talaga, ang dami. Like, you know how social media algorithm works as well, right? If they know that you like one thing, they will keep feeding you stuff with that thing. And of course, as an MCU fan, that is just super overwhelming. Even sa breaks ko when I use social media to chill lang, parang I wanna see memes, ganon. I'm still consuming MCU content via these blogs, articles, YouTube videos, theories, etc. And I am honestly so tired now. Of course, some people enjoy that kind of content naman, so I don't blame them. And like, hindi naman ako parang judge ka na, hoy, grabe ka naman. Pero what I do want to remind you guys is that it's important to be wary of this content that you are exposed to. Kasi baka kaka-absorb mo ng MCU content from these sources, bigla mo na lang na-realize na you are so fed up and wala ka nang gana sa MCU. Para bang na-self-sabotage mo na naman yung sarili mo, ganun. And I admit, I almost had a feeling na muntikan ko na ma-self-sabotage yung sarili ko talaga. Yung sarili kong enjoyment sa MCU. Kasi sa sobrang saturated ng social media ko with all of the MCU memes, the leaks, the theories, the news. Pero I was able to notice din naman agad what's happening to me. So I started cleaning out my social media. I shared in my previous episodes din naman na I literally did everything just to avoid No Way Home spoilers. And it's probably the best decision I ever made. I take less MCU content now from bloggers, media YouTubers, TikTok, and it made my experience with MCU so much better, to be honest. I know it's pretty contradicting and all. Like, I'm literally the Pinoy MCU fan who creates a podcast about MCU, and you would expect my podcast Instagram page to be a full on MCU fan vibes. Like, I'm gonna post my theories, I'm gonna do long posts of stuff. But honestly, I rarely post my theories on on my Instagram page because I believe it's best that that fans will find it out themselves. Like ikaw mismo yung makaka-find out niyan kapag like if you do your own research, if you're like watching previous movies, tapos parang suddenly you have the dots connected in your head. I only post theories kapag na-excite ako mag-share. Kasi I also have mutuals on Instagram that talks to me via DM na we're all conversing about these theories and topics. So, ayun, when I get excited, of course, I'm gonna share it on my stories. Pero sometimes lang din ako nag-share ng news about MCU. Pero mostly from Marvel official accounts lang din ako nag-share or kaya mga news articles. Mostly deadline ganon. Yeah, but I really want to champion din talaga yung having a safe space within the MCU fan community. So, ayun. At this point din talaga, this point of being oversaturated with MCU news also comes down din talaga with the way we consume media and the internet. So, be responsible, you guys. Okay, fifth point. Nostalgia for the days when every superhero movie wasn't a world-straddling event. Okay, so remind ko lang po ulit na this article came out in 2016, June 2016, and most of the superhero movies at that time dealt with very Avengers level threats, yung tipong sasabog yung mundo type of levels. But now naman na, I can see that the MCU explored more personal conflicts in the characters as the movie's main storyline. So, di pa naman ako ganon ka-stress sa MCU regarding this particular point. Pero I can definitely see din talaga na maraming MCU movie na ganito. Pero bet ko pa rin talaga yung first MCU film natin with 2018 Iron Man na hindi siya world-straddling event eh, no? Parang kalaban niya yung ka-opposite niya, ganon. So, I love that for Iron Man and Ironmonger. Yon. Yon, Ant-Man din maganda. Kasi yung first two movies ng Ant-Man, they were very heisty. Tapos yung pangalawa is very, I'm gonna keep running from the cops type of vibes. And then Black Widow was about taking down an agent organization. Hawkeye is also about redeeming himself, and Loki is about taking down an organization. Parang Black Widow then. WandaVision is about grief, and so far din talaga Phase 4 is looking really good for me. They're dealing with their characters on a more personal level. Number 6, your retinas have been seared so much so by whiteness. Again, reminder po ulit, this article came out in 2016 and the sixth point is very relevant din naman. Especially at that time. Kasi nga naman wala pa masyadong diversity noon. Pero now in Phase 4, as I mentioned in my Philstar article, if you guys haven't seen it, I can link it down below. This is the most diverse phase that we have so far. There are more women, by POC, LGBTQ plus people with disabilities and cultures being represented in Phase 4. Okay, I just realized. Did I say BIPOC? No, BIPOC. Black, Indigenous, People of Color. Yan. Na-stress ako bigla kung na-pronounce ko ba siya ng tama. Pero yeah, if you're like POC. Pero since simula pa lang din ito ng Phase 4, we have to look out din if Marvel continues to do this too, 'di ba? Sana ipagtuloy-tuloy din nila talaga. Number 7, you long for a little more genre variation. Again, ulitin ko lang po uli. This article came out in 2016. Pero in the context of now, we gotta admit that MCU has a lot of genres na din. As I mentioned earlier, yun nga Marvel Studios perfected their formula na parang meron tayong heist movies, space movie, magic movie, Shakespeare movie, all of that. Pero we can notice din naman na these movies are still like, they have that specific Marvel trait. Kaya alam pa rin talaga natin na it's a Marvel movie. I honestly still don't know what this specific trait is. But I think it's because how the main characters will always have a certain spotlight of them. If you know what I mean. I feel like if you try go watch some of the movies, if you're planning to rewatch rewatch some of the MCU films, you know what I mean. If you see that sudden spark with the main character, and that's how you would know that okay, this is a Marvel movie. And oh yeah, they always have amazing visuals, if you know, kasi maganda yung CGI ng Marvels. So I guess that's the Marvel Studios magic, baby. I did not know. Hindi ko alam kung ba't ako nagsabi ng baby. But yeah, okay, next one. Number 8. Superhero movies, rival sports, and the weather as played out conversation topics. Okay, this one heavily ties with the fourth point, yung the dread we feel when we hear MCU news. Because lahat tayo super saturated now with information, we all think we're amateur or pro experts when it comes to the MCU. To the point na when we talk about the MCU, alam na natin agad lahat-lahat. Ganon. Gets ba? Parang nakakapagod kaya makipag-usap sa mga experts. Like, yung mga usapang expertise, parang nakaka-stress. So, just imagine if you, parang, yeah. I mean, it's okay naman to talk about the MCU, pero it does get tiring din naman sometimes na we're all taking the topic way too seriously. It's hard to explain like I don't know how to encapsulate it in a few sentences, pero you'll feel it naman when you're in that specific conversation. Na parang, ay wait, we're all taking this for way too seriously, parang ganon. Kaya parang mag-aaway-away na. Parang sa sports, kapag yung mga team-team nag-aaway, ganun. So far naman in my experience last year, feeling ko din, I went overboard with discussing the MCU when I was talking to my friends. Parang, ayun din, parang naging self-conscious din ako na, okay, maybe I'm bombarding them with too much information na I might overwhelm them. Pero supportive naman yung mga friends ko sa akin na magdadala ko about the MCU. So, I'm grateful for them. But what I do now, though, is that I rarely talk like an obsessive MCU stan online. Even though posting long paragraphs, I don't post like long paragraphs on IG stories and stuff like that. Because I know that I might overwhelm people and I might scare them away. I might scare them away. I reserve it na lang for podcast content. I kind of find it funny, no? I'm literally the Pinoy MCU fan. I'm literally the one who should be posting long ass MCU paragraphs online, pero hindi. All vibes lang po talaga ako. Vibing. As I always say naman po, if you need, kung kailangan nyo guys ng kadaldalan, when it comes to the MCU, my IG DMs are always open. So I've been chatting with a few of you guys via the Pinoy MCU fan Instagram account, and it's been fun. So if you want to vibe lang din sa MCU, you can do that. If you're looking to bounce off theories from, I'm the perfect kadaldalan for you. Diba? Okay, pero yes. As I mentioned before then, sa fourth point, na in my earlier episodes din talaga na I try to not act as like an MCU update account kasi it's not just overwhelming for me, but it's gonna be overwhelming for my followers and friends as well. Gusto ko din maging safe space yung account ko for MCU memes for my fellow Pinoy fans. Number 9. Craving something resembling a unique visual style. Okay, ulitin ko na naman ha. This article came out in 2016 and we have to admit most of the superhero movies that came out that year all had the same vibes. So it's understandable why inad to ng writer's article niya. But now that we're in phase 4, we can definitely see that we are way past that. Eternals is literally the most visually stunning movie in the MCU. In my opinion, of course, and most of the critics that have said the same thing. Shang-Chi is also a breath of fresh air when it comes to the storytelling myths in the MCU. Like, literally, we have dragons in the MCU now. One of my favorite films as well is Ant-Man. It's actually my comfort film talaga. I remember watching it for the first time on Netflix and I almost forgot it's a Marvel movie because I'm so into the whole heist thing. And I love how it looks as well. Like it's more brighter and kind of like TV style-ish yung pagka cinematography niya compared to other MCU films. Of course, Doctor Strange came out in 2016 too, and it's literally the first time we've been to the mystical part of the MCU. It's so visually stunning that the mirror dimension looks so scarily awesome. And of course, we cannot talk about visually stunning MCU films without talking about WandaVision. Well, WandaVision is a TV show, but you get what I mean. The creativity that went into WandaVision is so cool and new in the MCU. The TV shows, but by the decade theme was very well executed for me. Even new small changes in the TV show's visual quality, it adds a certain it added a certain level of meaning to the storyline of WandaVision. I think probably my favorite one in WandaVision is what happened in the first episode when the TV show was set in the 50s 90s era. Remember when yung visitors ni Wanda and Vision suddenly started choking, and then you can notice that the camera quality suddenly changed to super HD, and it's more of a close up now to the characters. And dude, that impressed me so much. I gasped so loud while I was watching. Pero yeah, medyo mababaw lang din po talaga kaligayahan ko. Pero yeah, that scene in WandaVision episode 1 was really like kind of fucked up because like what the hell now? Like alam mo yun kasi pag 50s 60s TV show, very malayo talaga yung camera kasi nga naka-studio sila. You cannot really go in and like parang izo-zoom mo lang talaga yung the most that you can do is zoom in the camera. Yon. Hindi super close up sa mukha. Pero nakakaloka biglang super closed up siya. Nung part na yun na nagjo-choke na tapos naiiyak na yung asawa. Ayun, tuwang-tuwa lang din talaga ako doon. Okay, so anyway, but yes, Phase 4 has been visually diverse and I'm so excited to see what's next in the MCU releases that we're gonna see in the future. Multiverse of Madness, exciting. Ano kaya itsura nito, di ba? Oh my God, ito pa naman yung sinasabi nilang first horror leaning film ng MCU. So, I hope that's gonna be good. Super good. Okay, and lastly, number 10. You've lost the ability to differentiate between movies and TV. This one. We have to admit, we all have been feeling this way before pa. I think it's always inevitable din kasi sa MCU na they would just, release one movie for that one character. Madalas kasi parang laging may sequel, ano? Like, laging trilogy, ganun. What this point is trying to say is that when we watch a movie, we treat it like a pilot episode in a TV series. We've done this with the three main Avengers: Iron Man, Thor, and Captain America. I also want to mention Ed Norton's Hulk as well, but I have to admit I always forget about that version of Hulk. Kasi, ewan ko, it's part of the MCU, but I feel like we've all chosen to forget it. I don't know why. Pero kasi parang hindi na tayo familiar kay Hulk as Edward Norton. Si ano na talaga, si Mark Ruffalo na talaga nasa isip natin, ano. Pero yeah, for me, this point goes two ways din talaga. For Marvel Studios and for the fans din. For Marvel Studios, they need to learn din kasi talaga na to keep churning out movies na like yung movie, it's not making us feel like maraming points directing to a second movie. Gets ba? Like, sana may movie pa rin sila na hindi masyado maraming maraming clues na, oh my God, magkakaroon na naman to ng sequel, ganun. And for the fans din naman, it's important na wag tayo masyado mag-expect na, ay, dapat may second movie. Or, excited tayo na, yay, magkaka-second movie, we will end up, ano. Kasi pag ganun yung mindset natin, we will end up reviewing the movie din kasi talaga. Like it's the pilot episode of a TV show. Pero yeah, it's understandable din talaga why we would feel this way. Fans tayo eh, and we wanna see more of our favorite characters. Syempre, we had movies din naman in the MCU that feels very standalone. Of course, my favorite one is Ant-Man talaga. And they left us, wala kang makikita na quote-unquote possible second movie clues throughout the actual movie. Nilagay nila yun lahat sa mid-credit scene. Black Panther is also another example of a good standalone movie in the MCU. Kasi, again, yung sariling movie, wala siyang possible second movie clues. Black Widow, of course, is obviously going to be its own movie kasi Natasha is dead. I'm sorry. Pero si Yelena lang talaga yung magko-continue ng legacy. which is understandable, diba? With the Disney Plus TV shows naman, it's obvious that it's only going to be a limited series with one season. Except for Loki and What If, na confirmed na sila for a second season, which makes sense din naman kasi Loki is really made to be watched as a TV series din talaga. And What If is an animated series, so makes sense, 'di ba? Meanwhile, WandaVision is going to be a one-time thing, and The Falcon and the Winter Soldier is heading to the big screen as the fourth Captain America film. But I do think that it's going to be the first Captain America film with Sam. So I kind of have a feeling that they're setting up Sam Wilson with a trilogy as well as the Captain America. But again, we'll see. Currently, Moon Knight is also made to be a one-time thing too. But again, let's see na naman, 'di ba? Kasi Marvel Studios yarn eh. If something got good ratings, they will make sure to give it another film or season, 'di ba? Pero I hope that the season 1 of Moon Knight is good enough that it does not need a season 2 unless maganda yung storyline ganun. Ayun. So overall, I hope you guys get to learn something new with this episode. It was fun researching about the MCU burnout, and I just really want to remind you guys to na it's okay naman to take a break from fangirling or fanboying. Please look after yourselves then. This episode was so long, there were other sources that I forgot to mention as well. But I want to share you guys this video that I found that I really liked. It's a study of the MCU burnout published on December 2021. It's a YouTube video explaining the MCU burnout using numbers and data from MCU fans that they interviewed and how these results correlates with the amount of box office sales in each movies, etc., etc. It's a class project by two film students in California State University, Northridge. I will link the YouTube video in the description as per usual. As I mentioned in the beginning of the podcast again, madaming articles nga na puro box office data lang yung ginagamit to gauge how fatigued the MCU audiences are. But with the class project by the two CSU students, they actually it's actually the most recent publication that I found talking about the MCU burnout. And what I really liked about this video that they have is that they really surveyed our fellow MCU fans to find out how we are feeling. Of course, they weren't able to interview all of us, but yung sample sizing nila parang it was pretty good enough to predict what the rest of us are feeling. I really like the way that they summarized their project for us. So yeah, please watch the YouTube video if you have time. If you want to learn more about the most recent MCU burnout discourse. Anyway, the MCU will always be here naman, so it's immortalized na sa Disney Plus. So it's very important then talaga for us to see the early signs of the MCU burnout because this will help you take precautions then. You don't want to self-sabotage din na kakatutok mo sa MCU news, MCU updates, theories, Easter eggs, everything. Na-overwhelm ko na to the point na fatigue and burnout. This is one of the things that I am super mindful as a podcast creator talking about the MCU. Ayoko din maging super newsy or update account ako ng MCU. And I want to foster conversations with you guys. Most of the topics that I cover naman are stuff that you can listen to anytime without having to feel that urgency. Unlike kapag nanood ka ng mga like reviews, ganon, movie reviews, theories, parang medyo, kasi urgent kasi yung mga yun eh for me. I find them very urgent, yon. And I only share my full length of like movie reviews and theories dito sa podcast. So for sure, since Multiverse of Madness is coming out, I might create an episode wherein I talk about my review and my theories and my thoughts, ganon. So ayun, please everyone, I hope you guys learned something today and Yes, let's create a safe space for each other so we can keep enjoying the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Thanks for listening to the Pinoy MCU fan. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. To connect with me, you can follow me or message me on Instagram at the dot Pinoy MCU fan. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye!